Good Friday, everyone. Welcome to the Volquest.com podcast. Glad to have you along with us on this homecoming weekend. Tennessee hosts UAB. We'll talk plenty about that matchup, talk a little recruiting, and talk about the Tennessee basketball team, which unveiled themselves to the fans in exhibition play earlier this week. So plenty to get to. Brent Hubbs, along with Jesse Simonton, Austin Price, and Rob Lewis. Hope everybody is had a great Halloween and has themselves a great weekend. Let's talk a little bit about this matchup on Saturday, what Tennessee's kind of getting into with UAB. We'll start first with Tennessee and Jeremy Pruitt's decision at the quarterback position. Rob, Jeremy Pruitt says everybody's cleared medically, good to go. You've seen, Jared handle the ball. You've seen Brian Maurer. You've seen JT Shrout. What are your thoughts on the direction they're going there?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be surprised if Jared plays, other than like an emergency situation. I mean, non-throwing hand, but I mean, we all saw him like handling the ball, handing off. It just seems like he's very conscious of it. Very. Yeah, I think the handoffs are more of a concern than, getting a snap or anything else. I mean, just somebody hits that thing the wrong way, you get a screw inside your hand. I don't think it's ideal. I mean, I think now now that Maurer has been cleared and seems good to go, I think it's his game. And if it goes the way you would hope it would go against UAB, I'd be surprised if JT Shrout doesn't play. But I think Brian Maurer is the guy.
After seeing Jared on Wednesday, are you less optimistic about his effectiveness than you were seeing him on Tuesday, Austin?
I don't think I'm less optimistic. I would just venture to say that, I think a week from now, you'd probably feel a little better about where he's at than you are right now. I mean, I thought Rob's analogy of Luke Skywalker is probably, a really good one. I mean, could he play? Sure, but I mean, what's the point? Like, if you feel good enough about what JT Shrout got done last week, obviously he played really solid football. Hit the home run ball. They put him in a position to be successful, and he was successful. If you feel good about where Brian Maurer's at, then why even put two out there this week? It makes no sense to me to play him at all unless you are so stale on offense and need a spark. And what a turn of events that would be to go to him to get the spark.
Yeah, well, that's happened. I mean, it happened last week,
yeah.
I guess. It wasn't really a spark, but he ended up having his best game last week. I thought it was interesting, Jesse. JT Shrout takes by definition, the bulk of the first team reps on Wednesday. What do you make of that?
They're continuing to kind of expedite his progress. That I think of the three, he's clearly the guy that needs the most work, that needs the most coaching, that needs the most reps, that needs the most just maybe time with Juwan Jennings and Josh Palmer and Marquez Callaway. So even though Brian Maurer in a vacuum is still inexperienced compared to other quarterbacks in this conference, he has gotten more of those reps previously than Shrout. I'm still taking the over in this thing on over 2.5, guys taking snaps. I mean, Juwan's going to get some snaps, Maurer's going to get some snaps, and it would not surprise me at all if Shrout gets a series or two.
And do you think there was any element of on Saturday from Jim Chaney and others looking at JT Shrout going, holy crap, that kid can play? And maybe that's he's surprised some of his own coaches.
I do. I think maybe not specifically Chris Winkie or maybe not to that degree, Jim Chaney. I know it surprised some people in the program. I don't think anybody was surprised by the deep ball he threw.
No.
That's what he does. But there was a couple of times where he stepped up,
climbed the pocket, dumped the ball off.
He made a third down throw in kind of a tight window on a crossing pattern that was on time and a really good throw. That everybody, to me, kind of says, okay, he's. And I think that's one of the challenges, and I know people have given us grief on the general scores, and that's fine. But I think it's one of the challenges that Jim Chaney and Jeremy Pruitt have dealt with, because in the preseason and early in the year, Jared, by far and away the best quarterback on the practice field, did not translate to the game field. Okay, Brian Maurer was wild horse rider on the practice field. Put him in a game against Georgia and you go, wow, pretty good. JT Shrout doesn't manage the game very well on the practice field. Put him in a game, he manages it fine. It's been really hard to figure out what you're going to get in a game compared to what you see on the practice field, in my opinion.
And of course, everybody's rebuttal is, well, you got to see 8 minutes of practice. But I had 3 people last week tell me it was a struggle for him with signals in practice. Like, they have a signal that means, the run's going to the right versus the run's going to the left. He kept mixing it up and messing it up. But those are things
my
like
total point.
I know. And the other thing is, don't you remember, Jeremy, how many times have we heard through 18 months of him on the job, or I guess almost 2 years now, has he talked about he's never seen a guy that,
couldn't do it on
the practice field that could do it on the game field. Whereas, we saw Josh Dobbs firsthand his first couple of years. Now, he became better
Might
as
be
time
Jenkins
went on.
still that would have played Josh Dobbs.
But my point,
truth to that.
But so, I think a lot of that it probably goes into the whole, wow, they're not, not ready.
Well, I think that's the hard part with them, is because you're not sure exactly. I think Jerome Carvin falls into that category too. Here's a guy that didn't do it well enough on the practice field, Jesse, and then all of a sudden they put him in a game and he's their most physical right guard, and it's kind of solidified that position for them. So the head scratcher is, why? I mean, why didn't you know that week 1, week 2? What happened? Why can't you figure that out? I hate to sound against Coach Pruitt's mentality or thought process. There are some guys that are better on game day than they are on the practice field. It's been that way for years upon years at all levels of ball.
I think a guy like Darrell Middleton fits the same, is in that same camp. I will say, and I said this on Monday, so I do think it's worth doubling down though. I think the way they kind of managed JT was extremely smart on Saturday, and
particularly in light of what Austin just talked about with that signal stuff. Good point.
The fact that they literally rotated him almost every other play, that it was kind of a call from the sidelines, go run into the huddle, all right, come back out, we'll tell you again on the side, watch a play, let Jawan just go run for 4 yards, and then we'll put you back. Now, they didn't. Once they got comfortable that they were like, all right, he's gotten his feet wet. When Jarrett went out, they didn't do that anymore. They just let JT play quarterback. But it was a smart way for a kid that they clearly had some procedural concerns about, or operating the procedural stuff, to kind of at least manage best they could and potentially limit those mistakes.
All right, let me ask all of you this. What do you think Tennessee's got in Maurer and Shrout? Because everybody wants to know, what's the ceiling, how good can they be? I know we've seen a limited sample size, and I don't mean what are they going to be 2 years from now, but it's the same. It's a fan base that was, trying to get Harrison Bailey here on some kind of waiver in October to come play. Now you've seen him. What do you think Tennessee's got?
Now Harrison Bailey's more of a luxury, than he is a necessity. I mean, I think you feel like you've at least got, some potential there for the future. I mean, everybody's just kind of anointed Brian Maurer because he's kind of got that swag to him, and he's, taking pictures holding the $100 bills and all that stuff. I think they've just kind of got a solid group in there that, now all three have kind of shown that given an opportunity, given the right circumstance, they could go win you a football game.
Well, see, I think it's two different conversations. I would not call Bailey's just a luxury right now. I think he is still a necessity because what is happening right now is going to be very different than what this quarterback room, I think, is going to look like in January or February. And so right now, in my opinion, Tennessee and their fans feel like they have three guys who on a given Saturday, they may have some flaws, but on a given Saturday can win them a football game. Now, Shrout's, the sample size there is extremely, extremely small, but there's a very good chance that two of those three guys are. Whoever wins this derby, whoever plays the most, I think, in the next month between Shrout and Maurer, one of those kids is not going to be here next year.
In reality,
that's just the way it works.
See, I disagree. I think that Shrout's back for spring.
I think
Shrout would have potentially been gone had he not been given an opportunity. I think that also plays into the Wednesday reps to continue to show him and expedite the process of him continuing to improve. Because there for a while it was Maurer, JG, and JT was getting the threes. There for a few weeks. When I say that he's not a necessity, in reality, a quarterback in every class is a necessity. But what I'm saying is before he was, you felt like you had nothing in that room, and you felt like you had to hit a home run with him. To me now, it doesn't have to be a home run with him meaning starting as a true freshman right away.
I mean, I think you see two dudes that can play. I mean, who knows what they turn into if they get coached up? And I don't think that. I mean, with Maurer, I obviously have seen everything. Why people are excited about Maurer, but he's also.
My point is, if Harrison Bailey comes in and he's not ready to play right away, the sky's not falling.
I agree, but I also think that I'm not just like. I mean, I think Maurer. I get why people are excited, but he's also thrown 4 interceptions and played.
And that I agree with you.
Less than 3 whole games.
Yeah, I agree with you on this.
And he hadn't finished the game. I think it's interesting, or I don't know what the word is, but it was a thought that in January. You're right, Jesse, in the fact that what it looks like next spring may be totally different.
And doesn't matter right now, frankly.
I do think that there's a chance all these guys stay because they feel like they got a chance to win the job. Okay, maybe not Jared. Okay, maybe Jared moves on. But I think the 2 young guys, I think JT Shrout sits there, if he continues to play some down the stretch, and says, I can beat out Brian Maurer for a job.
I think the last part is key, though. I think the last part is key, though. Continues to play some.
But you also just said you're taking the over and under on 3.5 that they're going to play. I think we all agree they're going to play both of them.
I am, but if JG comes back next week for Kentucky, if Shrout doesn't see the field any of those SEC games, I think the calculus may change a little bit in his mind.
But there's not a huge advantage to him leaving in January,
that's
opposed
true.
to staying and going through
that's
spring
true. Going through spring, so I'll give you. So perhaps we're talking about next fall.
But are you going to have next fall? Are you going to have JG, Brian Maurer, JT Shrout, Harrison Bailey in that room? Chances of that happening? I'm not taking that bet.
Kasim Hill, baby.
I mean, I'm not saying those 4 guys are going to be in the room come August. Which I think
Hill should be the linebacker.
I think that's the point you're making, right?
Yes.
But I think,
and I'm saying right now it doesn't matter from how Tennessee wants to finish the season.
I think the quarterback competition, and I didn't interrupt you. I think the quarterback competition in the spring is different though than what you thought it was going to be, because those guys think they have a shot to win it and be the guy, as opposed to what Austin's saying is that it's January 4th. Harrison Bailey arrived. Here's the football. It's your football team. Which is a perception a lot of fans thought was going to take place.
That's definitely not.
I agree, but that was the thought process
a month ago. Yes. Yeah. I'm interested to hear your all's take. If Jarrett does not break a bone and continues to play last Saturday night,
he starts on Saturday.
See, I agree with that.
Totally.
I think that he had kind of reemerged as the guy over Brian.
Well, I mean, when we talked about this on the Monday pod, it was clear that they probably wanted to start him last weekend.
And honestly, a good coaching move.
And they decided not to because of the what happened at Alabama and all that. But the way they managed kind of those opening 2 drives with Juwan and JT, and then really kind of opened things up when Jarrett went out there, and then let Jarrett just play quarterback. And he was playing well, so you weren't going to take him out, but he's playing well.
By the way, how fabulous was the quarterback sneak call? I mean, they could have easily lined up.
Jim Chaney's got a sense of humor.
I mean, it was pretty phenomenal.
Hey, I think,
they ain't going to give it to Crouch.
On that topic, I think one of the most telling comments that Jeremy Pruitt made this week was when he on Monday when he was talking about the game, when he was talking about the throw that Jared made to Juwan. He said, that's the Jared Guarantano we've been seeing in practice all year long. I mean, I think that tells you. I mean, I think Jeremy has been just mystified by how Jared has played in games versus how he has played on the practice field.
Which has been the opposite of, his whole, you got to practice to play,
Yeah. I mean, I think Jared's not taking it from the practice field to the stadium. I mean, he said that all year, but he made a point. I mean, we're sitting here in November now, or tomorrow's going to be November, and Jeremy made it a point to say that's the Jarrett that we've been seeing all year long in practice.
And I'll go back to a comment he made on SEC Nation when he decided to start Brian Maurer against Georgia and set JG. He said sometimes you
need to sit and watch a little bit.
Watch because you can't make a layup.
Yeah.
You can't make the easy play. A week ago, 2 weeks ago at Alabama, grabbed the face mask. Last week, the closing shot, if you will, was arm around JG.
Kumbaya.
Yeah, a little kumbaya deal, which.
And he's continuously never given up on it.
Right. Jeremy's managed it well. What we don't know is really where JG is with everything mentally, because he put on a good face in his post-game deal. You don't know where he's at.
That was a Cheshire smile. Right?
It could have also been heavily medicated after breaking his hand.
Yeah.
But so what happens moving forward next spring is a whole podcast for December, I guess. The next month, how they manage it is going to be pretty telling as well, because are you going to manage? You can't manage it to keep everybody happy. You got to manage to win. So is it JG's job, if he's healthy, going into Kentucky, or are you going to play him in the relief role that you've been playing him in? Or are you basing that solely on what you get Saturday against UAB moving forward?
I'll be very curious, because what's funny is that like this whole rotating and how Jeremy originally, I think, started juggling the quarterbacks looked like it was going to be an unmitigated disaster at Florida. He just threw up his hands and was like, all right, well, let's put in Maurer to start the drive, and they let a kid throw the ball, whatever it was, 10 out of 11, 14 plays.
And then they come back and say, hey, let's throw Jarrett back in there.
And then they're like, we don't like what that's going on there. Let's put Jarrett back in. But since that game, I think how they've managed that room has been on point.
All right, let's talk about this game specifically. Interesting challenge for the offense from the standpoint of how a quarterback manages the different looks UAB presents, and can this offensive line, which is going to be a makeshift line, it looks like, because Jesse, you and I talked about it in the 2-minute drill Wednesday. How many game time decisions have been guys that end up playing for Jeremy Pruitt on Saturday?
That's a euphemism for doubtful.
Yeah, most game time decisions are put under street clothes. So if Jameer Johnson can't go, if Darnell Wright can't go, Marcus Tatum, Wanye Morris, the challenges this offensive line has with a UAB team that's going to be super aggressive and try to come from a bunch of different places. And how does the quarterback handle that? This is a real challenge for young quarterbacks because they like to mix stuff up and come from different places, right?
Yeah, and you and I talked about this kind of just off air on Wednesday and kind of breaking down the matchup. There is a little bit of paper champion with some of UAB's. Their stats are their stats, and they rank top 10 in a lot, number 1 in the country, and they're right above Georgia, number 1 for 10-plus yards play allowed. I mean, they limit explosive plays. They got 26 sacks, which is high. 2 guys that have a combined 50 pressures, but they've beaten one team that's beaten an FBS team. And so, they're beating up on some foes. But Bill Clark plays a sound defense, and that's why I think another reason, circle back to the quarterback, Rob, is going to be Brian Maurer and the RPO stuff that when he has had success, that's probably going to be Tennessee's avenue to protect an offensive line that may have Marcus Tatum playing a lot, getting the ball out quick.
That's what I've liked best about Maurer. Not necessarily just the RPO, and he's not done it all the time, but just – before he got hurt at Alabama and early in the Mississippi State game, or aside from the 2 interceptions, just making quick, decisive throws. That to me has been the biggest. And Jarrett was obviously much better last week, but that to me has been the biggest difference in the quarterback play. Is just getting it out of your hand quick, and I think that'll be key this week. Tennessee's been good on the offensive line, but I do think with the possibility of a lot of shuffling that UAB can get after the quarterback this week.
I think it's important for them to continue to try to establish the run, because after last week's 351-yard performance, I think it's going to be real easy for Jim just to want to chuck it. Because that's what he likes to do. So I think, they've done a nice job of working the run in the last month. I think you've got to continue to see them, work that, going forward, whether that be with Tim Jordan or Ty or whoever, or Eric Gray. To me, that they've got to make a real purposeful effort to, try to run the football Saturday, because I just think it's going to be real easy with the big plays down the field last week to want to chunk it deep a lot.
But I will say this, and I agree with that. That there has to be some semblance of balance, but balance doesn't necessarily have to be a play-by-play basis. And I thought and this will be in my 10 things tonight, but one of the smartest things I thought Jeremy said this week, which it should be music to Tennessee fans' ears, but worrying that you have this defensive coach who you may want to sit on the ball or whatever, is that he basically said, look at how hard it is just for most teams in the country to try to line it up and just march down the field. That the way you scored the football is chunk plays, and so he clearly was frustrated that they could not run the ball well enough last weekend. So they're going to clearly try to establish that. But I think you're going to continue to see these shot plays, because that's the best avenue they have with the receivers and kind of the unit that they have right now.
I think you still take shots down the field. My point, though, is kind of like how they went with Maurer at Florida, where they just got real pass happy with him.
Yeah,
I think when you throw it, you take shots. You can't throw it every play.
Right.
Though,
Well,
is my point.
No, and I agree with you. And clearly, early in the year, Jim Chaney had no belief they could run the football. He went into Florida thinking we got no shot to run the football.
They go back to
and maybe they couldn't, but everything was let's swing it out in the flat. Let that be extension of our run play. We're not going to line it up and run it right at Florida, and that's why he called 11 out of 14 passes with a quarterback getting his first rep.
I mean, it's mind-boggling if you go back to the second half of Georgia State. What they call six design runs, and then they run for 192 yards against Mississippi State. They bang it off the goal line in the fourth quarter. They go to Alabama and run the ball decently, 130 yards. It's just, they've gotten a lot. To think about that second half against Georgia State. I think that this highlights your point there. Jim had just no faith whatsoever that they could run the football.
And they've gotten better. I think everybody will agree
no
they've
doubt.
clearly gotten better on the offensive line. Now, he's not playing with the offensive line that he believes is going to be the most physical on Saturday, which gets back to, you got to run it enough to keep them honest. I did think, Jesse, and I think you noted this in your review piece, Chaney's aggressiveness on second and long was interesting, and that's kind of become, you and I talked about this, I guess, leaving the stadium. That's kind of the new trend in football, because for years, if it was 2nd and 8, everybody's selling out for the run because you're trying to get 3rd and manageable. Chaney took 2 big shots on second and long for big plays.
Yeah, and the analytic community will tell you these days that you don't have to actually be efficient to run the football for play action passes to work. You just have to try to run the football every now and then. But you can gain a yard or two, and defenses still have to respect gaining a yard or two, and then you got the shots on top. So they hit a huge play on 2nd and 9. They took another big shot on 2nd and 9 that went incomplete. But that was I really liked what I saw from Jim, and kind of, because that's not something he's done a lot of this season. So for him to kind of recognize that, we'll see if that continues.
On the flip side for Tennessee defensively, I think the challenge is they're a couple of receivers. Now, Coach Pruitt made it out that they had 4 or 5 receivers that were really good, but they've got 2 horses at the receiver position. How does Tennessee's secondary line up and play against those guys?
I think those guys are really good, but this is coach speak, but like 2 weeks ago, Jeremy said that any NFL team, or most NFL teams, would swap out what they had for Alabama's quarterback and receivers, and then 2 weeks later he says UAB is as good as anybody we played.
Yeah, that's coach speak. Judy's not running around. Smith's not running around.
But these guys are good.
They got 2.
Jesse's got a great stat.
Yeah, the only 2. UAB and Oklahoma are the only 2 teams in the country that has 2 guys with at least 20 catches and averaging over 20 yards of reception. 20 yards of reception for times 20. That's
in November.
In November, yeah. They are explosive guys. The flip side is that Tyler Johnson, their quarterback, will throw it to the other team. You had it in the round table. He had 4 interceptions in their lone loss, but he has 10 on the season. Their backup quarterback's thrown 1. As good as UAB has been, they have lived dangerously on the turnover margin. They lead Conference USA in giveaways. And so I think there's going to be some opportunities, especially for a Pruitt defense that seemed pretty salty about the fact, as well as they played shutting out Carolina a week ago in the second half, did not force a turnover.
And it's a defense, Austin, that's finding some plays from some different guys. Kevon Bennett, I don't think anybody saw that one coming.
No.
Look, I understand that maybe South Carolina, Helinski can't move around, this, that, or the other, but Kevon Bennett pressured the quarterback, created quarterback courage. DeAndre Johnson made a play.
They're more worried about Bennett by the end than they were Darrell Taylor. They've shifted their protection towards him.
Yeah, and so you're seeing some guys show up and make plays. This is becoming a complementary defense.
Yeah.
Look, they don't have 4 stars on defense, but they've got a collection of guys who are steady, who are making enough plays to create kind of a collection of guys, if you will.
They're brother-in-law in it pretty well.
Yeah, it's good.
They're 1 week it's this guy, the next week it's that guy. You've got Kenneth George coming out of nowhere to play meaningful snaps. You've got Jalen McCullough continuing to progress and playing. I do think Trayvon Flowers has a chance to get himself healthy and maybe play some ball at the back end of the schedule. It's a defense that to me, I think it's as good a story as there is on this team because up front, I just didn't see it. I didn't see it at all, and these guys early in the year showed that, but then since then have really kind of had things click for them, and they're just, as you said, good complementary football. I mean, every week it's somebody different. Who will it be this Saturday?
Yeah, it's again somebody seemingly different, but they're getting steady play from some veterans that they need to get steady play from. Nigel Warrior, Daniel Petulli. As we turn it to recruiting, last thing here, biggest concern you have in this game for Tennessee? What's the biggest? When you think about this game tomorrow, what's the biggest concern?
You let them hang around. To me, Tennessee. If Tennessee steps on the gas early, I don't think this game's. To me, it's at least a 17-point win for Tennessee. If Tennessee steps on the gas early. If not, if they let them hang around, they can lose.
I mean, because Tennessee could potentially be sloppy at quarterback. That's not outside the realm of possibility.
Yeah, turn it over.
Yeah, and UAB. I mean, again, I don't think they played anybody, but they do have a defense. I mean, they know what they're doing, and as Jesse's pointed out, they can make some big plays. So
I think it's just the pass protection. I think because a sack fumble. How does that? Tennessee's given up some big plays, obviously that Jeremy's been frustrated about early in games. But how would they respond if it's 10-7 and suddenly they give up a sack fumble? I think pass protection is going to be key.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Let's flip it over to recruiting. Jay Hardy, obviously going to do something November 6th. We talked about that on Monday. From a visitor standpoint, pretty low key this week, Austin.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Kyrie Miller coming in from the state of Texas. He wasn't able to make it in last weekend. Supposed to be here Saturday. But on the whole,
R.J. Adams, coming in officially. Couple offensive linemen. Sounds like he's still a Penn State lean, even though he decommitted. He's been back up there twice in the last month. And then Desmond Tisdall, is kind of a new name that Tennessee's gotten involved with. I think there's some questions about, academics, but Auburn's in the mix, Penn State, South Florida.
We appreciate the guy blowing the leaves on the other side of the glass here. I mean, I guess we're drying the concrete on the sidewalk.
I should say not South Florida, South Carolina. Excuse me.
So
got distracted there.
Easy to do. What's key for Tennessee in recruiting moving forward? You got Hardy, waiting on Tyler Barron. I think the other question, to me, defensively, Jesse, we talked about this. Where are you at outside linebacker?
It's a black hole.
And what are you going to do at that other running back spot?
Well, I mean,
aren't those the two biggest question marks as we move into November?
Yeah, because you feel like that. Even if they don't get them all, they'll go get some semblance of Big O, Jay Hardy, Tyler Barron, Oxendine on the defensive front.
Which is fantastic, but there's not a single one of those guys that's going to be standing up.
Exactly.
I mean, that's a fantastic haul. You can't downplay that. That is exactly what they need. I mean, I forget which poster it is. They deserve credit. Somebody put out like the Tennessee's potential defensive line next season if they do land these recruits with everybody coming back. I mean, it is an SEC looking haul, and it would be a deep room. But there will be the concern with Darrell Taylor, exiting. Who the heck is going to be your stand-up outside linebacker?
Yeah, maybe Tyler Barron drops some weight, and they stand him up. I mean, I'm just saying. I mean,
I know that's what he wants to do.
I don't a list of candidates.
Oh yeah, it's not like
with the loss of BJ. You don't have a list of.
And everybody says, guys. What about Grimes? I mean. There's several posters on the board that are pretty smart that have pointed out that Grimes is kind of this weird prospect that really outside of South Carolina and maybe Vanderbilt, who's really coveting Reggie? I think
everybody's at the same spot. Where does he play? How effective is he?
Yeah, this is a guy who if you're the number one player in the state, you should be at bare minimum a semifinalist for Mr. Football in your classification. I'm not sure he is, and if he is, it's based off a name only, because he's not had a great year for Ravenwood. Again, I just go back to it's just not likely that he ends up, in this class. And so, going back to your question, Tennessee, I think really likes Zaquandre White. Can they get him here for a visit?
A running back.
He likes South Carolina. he hears from Arkansas, and I know everybody's thinking, wait a minute, Tennessee just plastered South Carolina. I mean, kids don't really go into one game and go, oh, well, that's where I'm going because Tennessee beat South Carolina. I'm going to go Tennessee over South Carolina. Nobody thinks that way, really. They look at, how can I get on the field, and can he get on the field here? I mean, I think he probably can, but I mean, you do have some older guys in the room that have played a lot of football. It's not like you're graduating anybody in that room, and so that's what the South Carolinas and the Arkansas are going to tell Zaquandre or any back. Hey, look, they don't lose a soul.
Yeah, we're losing Feaster and Dowdle.
Yeah.
So the ball's in your hands from day one. But Tennessee's got to find a running back. They need a second running back in this class. I think everybody will agree with that. When you look at priorities in November, outside linebacker, second running back, another receiver, are kind of areas where I think Tennessee is. And you got to close. You got to close with those defensive linemen you're talking about.
Well, you and I have had this conversation. I would honestly give a really hard look at Elijah Young. And I don't even know if you could even get in there because you weren't really a factor before. I think he probably held some resentment there over that. But I mean, 6 months ago I would have told you you're crazy because he at no point has he ever really dominated the high school game. This year, he's a totally different dude.
Much more physical.
But I mean, he is just dominating every week and doing it with no quarterback. I mean, Brian got hurt in the second game of the year. I mean, literally last week he ran the single wing and Knox Central, who's the defending 5A state champs, knew he was getting the ball at every play, and he still ran for 250 and 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, he's not just sprinting to the corner.
No, I mean he's hitting it up in the hole.
He's breaking some tackles. He's running.
I mean, he is a different guy. So I mean, I'm not saying Tennessee should definitely take him, but I would at least get review every tape, see if
Do you think he's a running back?
I think that's the only way you could get him because that's what
and I think
Missouri's going to play him as an offensive weapon, whether it's a slot receiver or a running back.
Coming in taking snaps from Eric Gray next year?
I don't know. I'm just saying, it don't hurt to have as many playmakers as you can get. So, if my point though is why not kick the tires there a little bit, see if there's any kind of interest. You still want Zaquandre over him, but again, Zaquandre's not been here since Butch Jones was the coach when he was coming out of high school in Fort Myers. So.
And there's not a lot of running backs on the board out there to look around at, and you probably feel like you certainly need a second one in this class. All right, let's flip it over to basketball. Got a chance to see this basketball team, Rob, on Wednesday night. Too many turnovers probably for Rick Barnes' liking. Got a chance to see a bunch of young players. Got a chance to see a new look basketball team. What's your biggest takeaway from this team?
I mean, not a surprise. I mean, senior guards, Lamonte and Jordan. I mean, this is their team. Those two guys combined for 45 points. And 12 assists between them. I mean, it's going to be about them this year. I mean, they are very clearly, the barometer for this team. I mean, those guys. I mean, I think those guys will play well, but I mean, they're going to have to play well. Probably my most surprising thing was Fulkerson. I mean, he had a double-double, and not just the numbers. I mean, he just looked different. I mean, he just looked more confident, more decisive. And, I'm not saying Fulke's going to average a double-double every night. That's not going to happen. And they're going to obviously play a lot better competition. But he just seems so much more confident. And
wasn't on the floor, wasn't fly. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to make fun of it.
No,
there was a lot of kind of flopping around.
Like when he got the ball, he had a plan.
Right.
He was just, decisive. I mean, I keep coming back to that word. I mean, it was, and I mean, every coach I've talked to for going back to July has been telling me, man, Fulke is really playing well. He's turning a corner, and grain of salt, certainly. To take that with a grain of salt after what we've seen, but he's better, and he's going to have to be. I mean, depending on this plastic thing is just dragging out. Rick told me last week that he expected to hear something by Wednesday, which that deadline came and went, and we still don't know anything. Is that a negative? Is that a positive? It's not a positive, but I mean, is that an indicator that there's an issue? I don't know. I mean, you know as well as I, you never take anything for granted with the NCAA, and the longer this thing drags on, you've got to be skeptical.
What do you make of the freshman?
I mean, from the first time I saw Josiah, over a year ago in the summer, I just thought he was fantastic. I thought he was really good, especially when you consider that, I mean, he missed almost all of October with the little groin injury. He came back to practice last week, I think on Thursday. So he's practiced like 6 days. And he didn't shoot it great. He was 0 for 3 from 3-point range. That's not going to happen every time. He was 5 of 7 inside the arc, had 7 assists in just 23 minutes, and should have had a couple more if guys would have been paying attention and knew that there was going to be a bullet whipped at their head. Camwa, really impressed with him. I mean, he's a guy that has. I mean, going back to last spring, the coaches were just kind of rubbing their hands, Mr. Burns style on The Simpsons about, we're going to steal here, and I think that's going to turn out to be the case. He's going to. I always thought he was going to be an impact guy, just defensive and rebounding, but he can score for you. Last night, he was able to put it on the floor and make plays better than I thought. Devontae Gaines flashed, but I mean, he's going to be a real energy guy. I don't know how much he's going to play this year, but he just played 9 minutes last night. He's come back for a broken thumb, still wearing a brace on his hand, and some people just want to refuse to think that Drew Pember's a good player. That kid's going to be good. I mean, he tweaked his ankle last night. I hope it's not bad. We don't know yet, but he did some nice things. He mixed it up in the paint. He got himself to the free throw line. He had 2 blocked shots. He guarded people on the perimeter. He's a 6'9" kid that has some skill. So, but out of the gate, I mean, Josiah's going to start. He didn't start last night. I mean, Jalen Johnson, I think, got the nod just because Josiah's missed some practice. Josiah's going to start, be one of the best players on the team, and Camwa is going to play a lot. And I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't take. If he and Eves Pons don't see their roles flipped as the season goes on.
Because he can do so much more offense.
Yeah, so much more. And that's not a knock on Eves. I mean, I think Eves is going to be really good on defense. I like the move of putting him down inside. He's 6 foot. I mean, they listed him at 6'6". I think he's 6'5", but he's strong. Jump out of the gym. I mean, I think he's strong enough to where he's not going to get bullied in the low post, and the way he jumps, that's going to offset some of the height mismatches he's going to see. So, I mean, defensively, I think that's going to be fine. I don't think it's going to be a problem. But I just think, Camwa gives you so much more offensively. I want, if he can, get it together, learn how to play how Rick wants it to play, defensively especially, I'll be surprised. It might be a situation like Eves was in last year where, he started and didn't play that many minutes. I think that could be the case this year. I'm not saying it will be, but I think you got a lot more upside with Camwa than you do with Pons.
Basketball season underway, official start, I guess, next week against UNC Asheville. Is that right?
That is correct.
With
Tuesday
the
night.
season open, we'll see. I guess if there's a negative, Tennessee didn't shoot the ball well in the second half from the perimeter, but you're limiting up, some with Jordan and Lamonte, how much they're out there. That's the one concern. How many nights can they survive if they don't shoot the ball well from the perimeter?
No, they're going to have to shoot great from the perimeter, I think, most nights. Because, Fulgers is not going to give you a double-double
right
every night. But also, I think one of the kind of not much talked about things is because Josiah's been out, and even when he has been at practice, the way they have to balance out. If you just don't want it to be a mismatch, you go 5-on-5. Rick mixes things up. That's the most that he's played with Lamonte and Jordan since he's been here, and I think you'll see that get a lot better. I think those three are going to be a lot of fun to watch together.
Should be fascinating to watch the development of this basketball team. And again, they kick off the regular season next week against UNC Asheville. That's going to do it for this edition of the Volquest.com podcast. For Austin Price, Jesse Simonton, Rob Lewis, and the outside leaf blower, I'm Brent Hubbs. Thanks for joining us. Have a great Friday, everybody.